Howdy folks, Bluesboyjag here, yet another 3-string cigar box guitar lesson. I've had a lot of people ask me, why don't you ever tune to open E? Well, I done it, tuned to open E. I didn't even need to change my strings. Normally this guitar here, 3-string cigar box guitar, is tuned G-D-G, which is a super common tuning because you can use a capo to play in different keys. And in this case, I kept the strings on and just tuned it down EBE. And these are, trying to remember what gauge strings these are. I think they're probably 11s or 12s for the first string from a regular 6-string set. I don't know what these exact gauges are. In fact, I never have known what those are. I just know which ones work for whatever tuning that I need to experiment with. So this is EBE, so you can tune off of me. G string, tune down to E, and this is a B string for your second string. Normally that's a D, and another E. Make sure you use heavy enough gauge strings so that you can tune it down this low from a G. I can tune this back up with the same strings to G and play a gig, and of course anything between G and E is going to work without having to change strings. So I'm going to do some finger picking, and I'm going to do some muting with the fretting hand and muting with the strumming hand. John Lee Hooker style. Now one thing about this loose, low tuning is I can bend the strings really easily. So I can take this first string, let's say on the 5th fret, and I can bend it way up, and it's not too rubbery when it comes back down to its normal tension. Okay, so first things first, I'm using this part of my finger right here, the tip of my first finger, on the up strum, and I'm using my nail on that same finger on the down strum. Pretty straightforward, but if you haven't done it, it might take you a little bit to get used to it. If you're, for instance, a guitar player and you're used to using a pick, it might take you a little while. It's nothing fancy at all. I'm not saying that I'm amazing or anything, but it might take you a little while if you play regular guitar with a pick. It's a whole different ball game, but it allows you to do a lot of cool stuff. So, up close, pretty straightforward. I'm just going up with the tip of my finger, and I'm going down with my nail. The other thing I do a lot of, if you've seen my videos, you know what I'm going to say: choking with the fretting hand. Now, John Lee Hooker does a lot of that. Did. He can't do it so well anymore. And basically what you're doing is you're chopping off the sustain of the chord. You're also chopping off the sustain of any given note. Even if you're playing multiple notes, you can chop off the sustain of one or more of those notes and keep one or two sustaining. And you're like, what the heck are you talking about? Right now, I'm muting the third string, for example, with my thumb, and I'm doing an up strum, and I'm using the first finger on the first string, third fret. So right now, you're only hearing the first and second strings because I'm muting the third string. Now I'm going to bring that string back into play. So when I do this up strum, I'm choking with these fingers, second, third, and fourth. Well, the pinky just kind of goes on for the ride. So if I want a bright tone, I'm going to use my nail. I'm pretending like I have a pick in my hand. Now when I go up, I'm using my fingers, so that changes the tone just a bit. So it gives you more variation tone-wise. Now also, when you get way down here to the bridge, you can get these nice, really nice, fat, spanky, bright tones. Now, if you notice, as I go down this way, it's not quite so bright. So, hey, you have built-in tone. It's like having a tone and a volume knob. All right, so let's get to it. Now that you know the basic tricks here. So I'm going to start out here with my first finger on the second string, third fret. What I'm doing here is pulling off, starting with the up strum, by the way. I'm pulling off that first finger on the second string, third fret. But I'm starting with the up strum. And I'm choking with this finger. Actually, three fingers, they just kind of flop around. So for now, I'm not going to do any kind of walking bass pattern or anything like that. I'm just going to boogie on that chord, and I'm going to move around to different strings. For instance, the first string, third fret, and second fret, second string, third fret, and the third string, third fret. So I'm going to start out slow, and we'll just kind of jam. One thing I do is I mute the strings I don't want to hear, naturally, and right now I really don't want to hear that third string all that much. However, you do get a nice kind of a thump there. So I'm really only playing a two-string guitar at this point. I'm not playing that third string at all. Why am I not playing that one? Because I'm going to make it sound different later. So I like to change my tones, and to do that, I mute certain strings. So I'm not going to play all three all the time, or two of them all the time. I'm going to be mixing it up constantly. So I might be muting one string for a little while, doing this riff or that lick, and a different one for a different lick. So let me slow it down a bit. That's simply a choke right there. I'm bending that first string up. Now I'm using my third finger on that first string, 5th fret. So far, I'm not even playing that third string at all. Still has a big fat sound, but you're not hearing that low G at all. The next thing I want to go over here is the finger picking. Now, I don't do it properly. I just kind of figured out my own way of doing it. Just like the blues cats did. They didn't have $50 an hour guitar students back in 1928. So what I'm doing, my nail, pretending like there's a pick between my fingers, but there's not. Down strum with my nail. Don't forget choking over here. These fingers are flopping around. So if I press down the first string on the 3rd fret with my first finger, these fingers kill the other string if I want to. So that makes it kind of funky. Now I'm bending down. What I'm doing there is what I call a delayed bend. I'm hitting the note and pausing for a second, and then I'm simply bending it up with 2 fingers and back down. If you want to bend the 2nd and 3rd string because they're bigger, pull them down. Push up the first one and pull down the 2nd and 3rd. Now we put all this together, start out slow. Slow. Another trick here is to slide up 1 fret and back down. Let's say the first string on the 5th fret. And now I'm going to do the same thing, except I'm not going to slide. I'm going to bend up. You get the same note. Here's a slide, and here's a bend. And you can do that with all 3 strings. Right there I'm doing an up strum with my first finger, gives you a nice fat sound. So far I've only stayed right there in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th fret. And that's all I'm going to do for this whole lesson, because a lot of people think, oh, I got to jump all over the place. Well, you don't. You can do some really cool things staying in that same spot. Now I'm going to slide up from the 2nd fret to the 3rd fret. And I'm going to be on the 1st string, but I'm plucking all 3 strings. It's sort of not really a proper chord, is it? But it sounds cool, right? Now that is a proper chord. So I like to do stuff where it's a little bit weird for a split second. It's like, oh, he screwed up. Nope. So, let's boogie a while. That's my finger picking right there. Thumb and first and second finger. Thumb on the big string, first finger on the second, and second finger on the third. That's really helpful if you want to do a lot of choking. So if we put this together and I do some slide ups and make it funky, there's lots of things you can throw together and have two different parts or two different styles for your riff. I'm sure you've seen this if you've seen very many of my lessons in the past couple of years. I'm doing an up strum of all three strings. I've got my first finger on the second string, second fret, and I'm sliding up from that second fret to the third fret and back down and then pulling off. Same thing on the first string and the third string. This tuning is the tension is much looser because I'm tuned down to E, so I can do a lot of cool bends. So let's take a look at the right hand for a minute here. So far I'm doing just basic strumming, except I'm doing a few picks with my first finger. All I'm doing is if you mute the other strings you don't want to hear, it kind of gives you a louder sound. Because I'm strumming all three strings, it really fattens out your tone. I'm doing an up strum with my first finger. That's all I'm doing. If I do it like this, it looks different than if I do it like this. Obviously, looks like I have a pick in my hand when I'm doing this, but I'm not. I'm still using my first finger on the fleshy part on the tip, and I'm also using my nail on the down. So now we have tonal variation. So we have lick variation, and we have tonal variation, we have pull-off variations, we have bend variations. Another thing I like to do with a guitar tune this low is I can bend multiple strings at the same time. So this is a little bit tricky because these strings are pretty heavy. What I'm doing is barring the first two strings on the 5th fret with my third finger, but I'm also using my second finger to help push down that third finger. It's the same thing I did earlier with that first string or second. So this choking is basically the most common thing I do on a 3-string or a 4-string. So I'm going to do a little walking pattern here, and I'm going to use my nail, and we'll close out here in just a second. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and check out my website, bluesboyjag.com. Cigar box guitars, handmade in my little dinky house for 21 years. And we'll see you next time.